This is the Mind Body Detox Podcast, where we discuss all things integrative health and wellness, interviewing folks from all over the world, sharing insights and wisdom on how to live a healthier life in mind, body, and spirit. So we're back with part 2 with author Shirin Edesam, where we're talking about her book, Free to Be. We're diving into the topic of self-responsibility, and we continue to discuss the foundations of her book, Free to Be, a guide of finding fulfillment and purpose and reclaiming your soul. And part of this reclaiming our soul, we talk about the changes we've all experienced post-COVID, as well as how do we navigate shifting and changing the people in our lives, and how do we navigate finding our new tribe after some foundational shifts that we may have had along our journey. So without further ado, let's dive into part 2. I absolutely love that. And it's a matter of, like you said, you talk about self-responsibility. That is like the biggest thing we talk about on this podcast, this big shift from, our consciousness is from a disempowered space in a collective sense. Like this is where we've come from, feeling victimized, feeling like we have no control, we have no power, from all the things that are overwhelming our nervous systems and everything that is kind of contributing to that, to this space of kind of, I call it radical self-responsibility, because it's radical in a sense that it's so contrasting what the social cultural norms are now. And luckily that's changing. And I just think it's the thing that I believe as well will change and create this piece. I love your definition of it, because I do think that it would be like that movie Pleasantville, if you've ever seen that movie.
Oh, yeah.
If everyone was, everything is kumbaya and there's no challenge, there's no opportunity for growing pains, maybe the opportunity to alleviate suffering, but not alleviate pain, not alleviate growth. That creates the opportunity for strength and endurance and confidence and all the great things that come with the spiritual shit, the fertilizing shit that fertilizes your soul to sprout from. So yeah, I love that definition.
And it's, it seems like it's far-fetched, but I was thinking the other day that truly it's not. If you think about the pandemic, right? And how it has shifted the world, what seems like fairly permanently in many ways. You look at work, for example, the option of work from home at pre-pandemic was such a luxury. Whereas if I'm here and you are there and we are podcasting and we're in the environment that we're in, nobody thinks twice about it. We get on Zoom calls now and everybody's in their bedrooms and their living rooms and there's no second thought. Whereas that was inconceivable as a regular day in, day out mode of working prior to the pandemic, but now it just is. So there was a shift. It was kind of a horrible, horrible shift, but the shift has happened and now it's the new norm. So that tells me, and maybe it takes a bit of jolting, and I don't know what that kind of spiritual jolt would be, but a shift is possible. And maybe it's a tipping point. Maybe that, maybe it's a tipping point and the butterfly effect, that if enough people do it, that others will follow suit. And I'd like to think that is the case.
I mean, and I'm not sure if you've experienced this in your life, that either yourself or if you've seen other people suffer in pain and they're cycling. You can only, the pendulum always swings to the other side. You only, either there is the horrible tragedy of people who do end their life, this extreme outs, like I need an out. But the other possibility, the other more hopeful possibility is they extreme out of their sense of identity, who they thought they were, who they believe they need to be. And then something shifts and they slowly, climb their way out of their hole. And like you said, a lot of times during that dark night or during whatever that part of their journey you want to call it is, they don't have a map like you said, for 6 years, you were just, I don't know what I was doing. And it's as long as more people are talking about that part of their journey, especially if COVID was their wake up call. Like I said, it takes a big shift, losing a marriage, a death, something like COVID to create these shifts in the solidified ego of who we think we are. And that shakes it up. But as long as more people are sharing their story and giving their breadcrumbs that were given to them to follow, so that at least people have okay, that's cool, I want this piece. And I love that you have mapped yours out in your book. And that is so valuable because we need it. So many people need that, especially if they're not in that point in their spiritual journey that they feel confident enough following their own inner voice of what those steps look like. We need a guidebook to start with.
Yeah, and I often talk about try this. If that doesn't work, try that. Because it really is about that. And the truth of it is that, some woman in Mississippi who's going through a breakup or lost someone may pick up this book, and it can really resonate with her. And then she develops her own way of going about things, right? And can give back to the world, and so on and so on. And frankly, if it wasn't for all of the thought leaders and spiritual leaders that I either sat with or watched or read, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. So all that is really important, and realizing that it evolves, right?
Yeah.
So I put this out in the world, and hopefully it touches and resonates with people, and they do whatever they do with it, and so on and so on. The same with your podcast. Someone listens to this or other episodes, has an aha moment, and that shifts them into some new way of thinking or being. And that's the work, right? That's us doing our internal work and giving to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really beautiful to be alive in my perspective at this time because of, at least in this bubble, it is a bubble. It is an echo chamber. Like, again, algorithms give you an echo chamber of all the things you want to see and all the people you want to follow. And hopefully it's uplifting, inspirational, motivational, this feeding this type of perspective, right? And again, like you said, we have to choose that. And there are people out there that are not in the bubble of motivation and inspiration. But it is beautiful because I think it keeps building and building and building. And how many years ago we didn't have access to social media for the good aspect of it, of having so many different potential teachers or people that you could consider someone that inspires you. Like Ram Dass says, we're all walking each other home. Now, a lot of us are walking each other home. There's so many different ways to have the reflection of our consciousness of ourself, seeing that and say, oh, I'll guide you here. But the discernment, like you said, you're not pulled all over the place, I think is really important. So when we are all on our journey and we're kind of finding our, getting back in tune with our soul, how does that shift then the people that we choose to have around us, that we discern and consciously choose to be in our lives? And how does that affect tribe and community?
Yet another great question. And I have in week 2, Heart Detox, I talk a lot about that, actually. And I put people in 4 different categories, which I call taser, shield, filter, or hug. And
wait, say that one more time.
It's
taser,
taser, shield, filter, or hug.
I love that.
So
I love you use taser.
Well, taser, there's some people in your life that, and I have gotten into a place of tasering them and then really wishing them well. Truthfully, they just can't be in my periphery, anywhere close in my life. That's taser. People who are toxic, who you have the ability to not have in your life. That those are people in the taser category. Shield are people like my co-parent, and my ex is actually somewhere between shield and filter right now. We're actually getting along quite well. So it's not sometimes I shield, sometimes I filter. But shield really is people who need to be in your life, a nagging mom or a boss that you don't really like, people who have to be in your life, or an ex that you're co-parent with, and really creating very solid boundaries and making that clear so they know that they can't cross it. And that's super, super important and hard to do. So that's the shield category. Filter is really discerning who you share content with. And I talk about that on social media. I mean, some people just share everything, they overshare. And if we don't have context, and we often don't, especially in social media, because there's a short clip or something briefly written, we don't have the background, we don't know all of it, it doesn't land the way that I think people want it to. So, and the same goes with friends. Like, there's your inner circle, and then there's the tertiary friends or your colleagues or all of that. And being really mindful of what you share. So that's the filter part. And hug is your tribe. Those are people who have earned the place, as Brene Brown says, have earned a place at your table. And those people you love big and you stay very true to, and not just true as in loyal, but true with, and really be open to hearing them. I've got 2 BFFs and they can be highly critical of me. And I completely invite that in because they know me so well that if I am off, they will point it out, and they have the right to.
Yeah.
Whereas in somebody in my shield category, definitely not in the taser category, is allowed to do. So there you have it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. That's so amazing. So I think that when people are transitioning and following their soul more, like you said, they're tasering people, they're shielding their whole community, and can shift to the people that were around that maybe are no longer supporting this path. And they say, I have discernment here. I have to get this person away from me or distance myself. And there's a part of that journey that I think is a grief process, because you're shifting who was in your life, and re-inviting or opening up maybe for new people. So how do we find those people? Because I think tribe and community is something that, for people who listen to this podcast, we are all about that. That's the foundation of everything we do at our clinic here locally, and everything for the podcast. So I'd love to hear your perspective on community and tribe and the importance of it, and how do we find those people?
Without sounding too woo-woo, I really actually think that those people find us. And I definitely believe in vibration, and not, again, in the woo-woo sense of it. I truly believe that we attract who we are. I look at the friends that I had in my 20s when I was partying hard, and how those people just melted away as I decided to have a family. And not because I said, zap, taser away, go away. They actually naturally fell away. And then I see the people who have entered my life in the past decade, and who I've kept close, and all of that. And I think the true work is within. And then, as you say, discerning when people come into your life, like noticing, wow, if this person came into my life 10 years ago, I would have had no space for them. But they are so perfect now. And I think that's how truthfully.
I love it. I love that. And I will just say that one of these days, we won't have this needing to preface what this might sound so woo-woo. I really look for the day that we don't have that as a culture, because so many people, we feel that it's woo-woo. And I go, but doesn't everyone have that experience? Everyone I've talked to has had that experience. When they shift themselves, the people fall away. And I find it so funny that we still considered it woo-woo.
So that's a really important point to bring up. And I do think that within, I would say, the next 3 to 5 years, we will see that. We will see that shift.
Yeah.
And I liken it a lot to mental health. Like 5-10 years ago, if you talked about depression, you talked about going to see a therapist or a psychiatrist, you would have to do it in whispers or hushed tones. You
Absolutely.
would never mention it to your boss, and you certainly wouldn't bring it up at a press conference. Whereas in now, you see celebrities, you see especially sport celebrities who take mental health breaks. You have the likes of Prince Harry who are advocating it. And people don't think twice now, like, oh, okay, somebody's taking a mental health break. Oh, somebody is taking time off to go take care of themselves. And I think that especially if we start calling spirituality spiritual health, and people realize that it isn't woo woo, and that it very much can be integrated and very much needed, and that it goes hand in hand with mental health, in that I mean, again, there's some stigma around it, so people don't talk about it. But if you have mental health without spiritual health, truthfully, you're just moving the furniture around, right? You're just managing in your mind, like, oh, I was thinking that, I'm going to now think about it this way. You've got to come from a different sense of an awareness in order to truly shift your mind. So in the next 3 to 5, I'm going to predict that in the next 3 to 5 years, I do think we're going to see the shift that you're hoping for.
I'm going to second that prediction to be a reality, become a reality, because for so many years, Shirin, as a medium, I'm a very grounded person, I'm very scientific. I am like a lover of both sides of the perspectives, and I see how they connect. I see them. And so for so many years, my journey was to be a bridge. And I almost, in a way, use those words to help people, to use that as a preface to say, this may seem woo woo, because by saying it and bringing awareness to that, what I'm about to say may sound a little out there, it gives them permission to, like, wait a second, just listen. And I think the reason why we've had to preface it with that is because of the spiritual bypassing, because of the stuff that happened and maybe is still happening, of course, in this spiritual sphere that is harmful or degrading or separating or creating cult followings or all the things that is kind of the seedy underbelly that I've seen and been aware of for so many years. That part of my journey is to bring awareness to it and say, not everyone's like that, and I just love that we're coming to a head here. That, and for those of you out there who sometimes feel like you have to hide your spiritual side of yourself, you feel like you can't talk about it with other people because it is woo woo, or someone might think that because you believe in energy or manifestation or whatever it is. I encourage you to put some energy and some prayers out there to the 5-year premonition here that we're making happen. We're going to make it happen.
And I think there's also, as we destigmatize spirituality and redefine it as spiritual health, it's also separating it. I think spirituality and religion get really mixed.
Right.
And I think it's important for people to know that you could be spiritual and religious,
Yeah.
or religious and not spiritual, or spiritual and not religious, that the two are not the same at all. One believes in an outer God, and the other, the work is all within. Two completely different things. And the two do go together, but they're not the same thing. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. Well, I'm excited to see this in 5 years. And I think that all of the things that you're doing and all the things that other people in the world are doing are contributing. So I look forward to that for sure. Well, I want to just say that for those of you who are listening and who are part of our online community and are in our book club, we are adding a new book to our book club. And guess what book it's going to be? Free to Be. We're going to put that on the book club. So those of you who are looking at the list for the year, we try to plan it out for the year. Just expect some changes in that schedule, folks. So I want to hear about your book launch date and anything else you would like to share about this amazing feat to write a book, to launch a book, to record the audiobook. All of this is work. You have to overcome this part of yourself. It's all of us, no matter, who we are. We have this perspective of people who are authors or people who are public speakers, or that they don't have to go through rough times too. Like they don't have the inner negative voice that holds them back. Like it's a lot. And along my journey, and I'm sure for yours, it's a really beautiful feat to do it and to give back. It's a great gift of service. So tell us more about that and where we can really access the book when it launches too.
So the book is on pre-sale, so you are very welcome to pre-order it. It would be lovely if anyone did. And it's available. It's being distributed by Simon and Schuster, and it is on a variety of platforms and in indie bookstores. Easiest is Amazon. But you could find it in a lot of different places. Just look up my name or Free to Be, and you can purchase it now. It the publishing date is June 20th, which is perfect summer reading. It's interesting because a lot of people talk about self-help books being published in January, which is also a really great time. That's usually when they do it. I think that the summer is perfect time because it's warm out and hopefully you get some, downtime, and it's like an excellent time I think that a 6 week, though I make it very doable within the day to day, I think that doing the process for 6 weeks during the summer is frankly perfect, but obviously you could do it at any time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the journey from writing it, and it takes a while from writing it. I pretty much woke up at January 2021, and my wife tells this story. I just woke up and I'm like, I'm going to write a book. And I did. I promised myself that I would write a chapter a month, and I had it in my head. And so I did a chapter a month, and then I sent it to 2 agents that I knew after the 6 months, and they both wanted it. And that was my first, like, oh my God, I might be onto something. And then I went with one of the literary agents, and we sold it by the end of that year. And since then, there's been all sorts of, so that was the end of 2021. So almost a year and a half later, it's now ready. I mean, it's involved. I don't know how people self-publish, and I should say I know somewhat because my sister just self-published something she wrote. But even with a massive distributor and publisher behind me, I am doing so much of the work, and it's overwhelming, and I try to meet it with a beginner's mind. And it's a fantastic, like, I am not complaining at all, but it is overwhelming. And I'm like, okay, further growth.
Yes, right, right. I think that's part of the journey, and at least in my experience, I don't know, it gets easier. It's like jumping rope. Me and my partner always say that we have this thing where, like, you think when you overcome a fear or a pattern that it's going to go away forever, and sometimes it doesn't. It comes up. You see a new, person that will trigger you or bring us in. It's just like jumping rope. You just get, oh, you see the rope coming this time. You just, oh, okay, jump right over it. I'm going to go along. And you don't lose your rhythm as you continue to practice. And I just love that the more you are giving and showing up for the world, and this is just my own experience too, being a leader in this kind of areas, we do more jumping, more devotion to our path. And the more we do it, it's just jumping rope, and it just feels so good.
Absolutely.
Even though there's still challenges along the journey. It's not going to be perfect
And
after
you may
that.
trip or hit somebody with the rope or whatever, but yeah, like continue.
I know you talk about that in your book too, that, after this whole thing of, oh, my life is going to be perfect, after I find my soul and do all the
Yeah,
things. And
that's an illusion. I mean, I mean love the life I have now, and I am so awake. And sometimes it's painful and sometimes it's blissful, but I feel really awake. And when I am not, I notice that I'm not, and get back on my path. But it isn't, I mean, life is difficult. So, we in Buddhism they talk about the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths, and so much of it is about accepting the human experience, knowing that life is difficult and pain exists in different degrees, and to not fight that truth. It is what it is. What now? Given all there is, what now? And what can I do?
Thank you so much. I'm just so grateful and really excited to read your book. And I think if we have the opportunity, if our book club is done reading your book, maybe we can have you for a Q&A or something like that. I think that'd be really awesome.
I would love that. I was actually, as we're talking, I was imagining myself sitting on your couch, sipping tea and talking.
All right, there you go. You got it. Yeah, we actually when we started our book club, we actually started it's called the Spiritual Steep Book Club. For those of you who are listening and have no awareness yet, and you're like, "What? She's talking about this book club? I didn't know it was there." You have to go into our online community, folks, and we'll put those information in the show notes. But it is the Spiritual Steep Book Club. So it is steep in our minds, spirits, bodies, all the things into the not our bodies literally, but we're steeping in the spiritual and the self-development realm with books and opportunities to connect and talk and chat over them and drink tea. So we do that once a month in person at our clinic here in York, Pennsylvania, and then we do it also once a month online, so people can join one or the other or both if they are local. So that's a great opportunity. So we did that when we first started. We launched with Memo from Your Soul by Tom Noonan, which is an amazing psychotherapist who's actually local. And it was the benefit for the local group to get to meet him. And that was what they were super excited about. And I said, we're going to do this. We're going to continue to bring in authors that we can have chat with you after, because it's just so much fun to pick your brain after we read your book and say, tell me more about this. So if that's exciting to you, we'll absolutely set up some time to do that. I'm really excited that you're interested in that. The other thing I wanted to ask you, as far as your book goes, again, this comes out June 20th. Everyone, you can do the pre-order now. I'm going to put the links and everything in the show notes. But is there anything else that you want to share with how we find you? And of course, I'll link everything. And then I'll go into our final two questions.
Well, social. So I have both TikTok and Instagram is just my first name and last name. Please follow if you'd like. I also have a private Facebook group called Innermore, and that you have to be invited in. And I started it a few months ago, and it has a few hundred people in it. And that goes a little bit more in depth into everything. So it isn't just, kind of a post a day that we do post every day. And I really invite the community to also post. So it's a conversation and not just me pontificating. So that's also a possibility if people are interested in that. But that is a private group. And my website, that gets updated regularly. And that's also my name.com, Shirin@assam.com.
Perfect. So my final two questions are the two questions I ask every one of our guests for their first visit on the show. And so this first question is, Shirin, what is your current favorite product, wellness topic, or self-care indulgence at this time?
I don't know if I have a product. I mean, the very first thing that comes to mind, because they're having in-person sessions and retreats now, is Spirit Rock. I love the place. I do. For me, it is heavenly. And I was just there last weekend. Again, I'm pretty basic. Like, I really, for me, well, playing, that's a conversation that is fairly unique that many don't have. So swinging on a swing, I would say that. I love swinging on a swing. There's actually this one place we walk in Tiburon. I live in Marin, in Mill Valley, Marin, but Tiburon's very close. And there's a walk that we take, and there is this one place with gorgeous scenery and this big swing there. And it is so life affirming. And, I'm suddenly 5 years old again, and I'm swinging. And every time I swing, I feel like I'm going into the bay, and it's amazing. So there it is. My favorite product is a swing.
I love that. That is actually my favorite thing to do when I like go and have fun, just to bring back that inner child, because that was my favorite thing, like swinging and roller skating. But I love swinging, and I love closing my eyes when I'm swinging, not roller
Oh my
skating.
God. So we have a place here in San Francisco called the Church of Eight Wheels. You would love it. They just put on music and disco lights, and it's a skating rink, but that is what you do. And it truly, for me, that's like, if I was to go to a church, that would be the kind of church I'd go to.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I would
That is
love
amazing. Well, roller skating's coming back. Like I
it.
just like got my skates and I was like, wait a minute, this is trending now.
Right?
Cool. That means there's going to be more opportunities and more people, if they're developing landscape, and we're going to put in a path that's also paid for roller skaters. My hopes are for that. So that's really cool. That's awesome. So my final question is, if you could detox one thing in your life or the world right now, what would it be?
Our brains. No, seriously, our brains. I think that if I had one wish for the world, would be that the world would collectively realize that we are not our thoughts. If we actually had the ability, which we do have the ability, but the awareness to have the awareness to step back from our thoughts and realize that just because we think it doesn't mean it's true, and that it is truly our opinion and not the truth, we would be so much better off, because it'd be like, well, my opinion is blah, 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 instead of this is how it is.
Yeah.
So that would be my wish for the world.
We would have so much less suffering within the world and within ourselves, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Shirin, for coming on. I am really, really looking forward to reading your book, and we just appreciate everything you're doing in the world. And again, everyone, check out all of her channels. I'll put everything in the show notes, and come on over to the community if you want access to the book club, because we're going to be definitely reading this. And I'm really excited to see that date coming up. We'll have her come and chat with us after we read it, so we can chat directly with the author. So that's super awesome. So thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. And you guys all out there for listening, thank you again for continuing to follow us. And we really appreciate you guys. And be well until next time, my friends. Thank you for listening to the Mind Body Detox podcast. We wish you wellness and health in your mind, body, and spirit. And be well until next time, my friends.